turnouts ever. For us locally, we had a total of 92,626 votes cast, which is well past what the last presidential was. So I wanted to go over a little bit of information for you. I felt since we did have such a big turnout that we probably needed to, I wanted to present a little more information than I normally do. So for ballots by mail, we mailed out 3,427 ballots. We only had 2,942 returned. Of those returned, 43 of those were rejected by the early voting ballot board, giving us a total counted of 2,899. For early voting, we had a total of 71,759 voters cast their ballots early. So was a huge turnout for early. Part of that early voting is limited ballots. If you don't know what a limited ballot is, it's for people who recently moved to Brazos County but have not updated their registration yet. And for those voters, they can vote here. They have to vote during early voting, and they can only vote in my office. Those voters then only get to vote on the things that we have in common with their county. So most of the residents here who voted on a limited ballot just voted really the top part of the ballot, mostly president, senate, and maybe just a few state offices. But we had 7,872 limited ballots cast, which is far beyond anything we've ever had to manage in my office. The largest we've ever had is 16,083, and that was in the last governor's race. So as you can see, our student population was very enthusiastic when it came to voting for the president. I would like to talk just a minute about that. We were able to handle those 7,872 voters 10 at a time because of the room accommodations, the size of the room that we vote in. We vote in the same room as regular voting. So we had plenty of staff taking care of that. We had a great team of workers that handled that, plus my staff. But for every one of those voters, when they check in, we have to be able to go onto the state database to make sure that those people are registered in the state of Texas. That is one of the requirements. Twice during early voting, the county lost internet service. So we were able to put in place our emergency plan and continue rocking and rolling just like nothing had happened. And that that allowed us to be able to use laptops and other things to be able to log on to make sure that those voters were able to still cast their ballot and that they didn't stand in line for an hour for nothing. So we were able to continue on as normal. Election day, we also had 17,883 people cast their ballots in our 28 locations. Like I said, bringing our total to 92,626. Immediately following our last count on November 12th, we participated in a risk limiting audit. We are the first county to participate in the risk limiting audit program in the timeline that the legislature has spelled out for us. The risk limiting audit program up until this time had been performed sometime after the election. But I requested that the county be able to do the risk limiting audit when it was required by law, which is prior to canvass. So that's a very short window for us to be able to close out an election and then to be able to do the risk limiting audit. The state sends a person down here. The information is plugged into a computer. They give us random ballots to pull. You have to count through all the bags and find the specific ballots, and then they're placed into a computer program, and then we were given a successful status for that, and we were able to produce everything that we needed to for the statistical analysis to show that everything was counted properly. And then we completed our partial manual count. The partial manual count was started on November 15th, where we drew 3 additional precincts. The state assigned us precincts 107, 22, and 69. At the drawing, we drew 74, 88, and 2. That drawing was performed by a representative from both parties and then the general counsel for the county, each drawing one of those additional precincts. And then also this time we were tasked with counting 3 races instead of just 1. Normally we're just assigned 1, but this time we counted the presidential race, the Senate race, and then we also had to draw 1 local race. In our drawing, we drew the 272nd Judicial District, and I'm happy to say that that our partial manual count came out with no discrepancies. We also counted for Election Day. We counted Castle Heights, Church of Nazarene, and Brazos Center, and that is the entire location. That is not the specific precincts. We count the entire bag. So we began sorting on Monday, November 18th, and we finished counting on November 20th. So it was quite a long ordeal this time. The partial manual count teams were comprised by election workers from both parties, and we counted a total of 8,702 ballots by hand. After the election is completed, I am required to file a reconciliation that has to be posted on our website. I gave you a copy of the reconciliation. The reconciliation just is a comparison of how many people checked in against how many votes that we counted. We were off by 42, which we were short 42 ballots, which we attribute that to voters who left with their ballots and didn't place them in the scanner. To those of us who are normally used to voting on the system, you would be surprised that people try to walk out with their ballot. They consider that a receipt, or that's, you know, their ballot to keep. They don't realize that they have to place it in the scanner. We have a lot of people who have not voted on the new systems and on paper, so we did have a lot of people trying to leave with their ballots. We post someone at the door of every location, watching for those, making sure that people put their ballots in the scanner, but we were short 42 ballots. Which gives us a percentage of 0.045 difference in the number of ballots that were cast and the number of ballots counted. And then as far as voter registration, our voter registration team also has a lot of work to do in finishing up the election. They've processed 656 provisionals, the 7,872 limited ballots, and then we've also processed 2,636 address confirmations. Our voter registration roll currently, as of Friday, was at 141,267 voters. So with that, we've had quite a big increase. And then also, I want to give a great big thanks to our election workers. You know, we would not be able to do what we do without the volunteers that we have. For early voting, we have 38 workers. For election day, we have 188. For central count, we have 12. The tally team is consisted of 5 workers, and then we also have 5 runners, which is a total of 248 people between early voting and election day. So it's quite an undertaking. So, have any questions for me?
I just have a comment. I just want to thank you for your leadership. You've just done a phenomenal job. You've got a great staff, and the workers that work election day are to be commended, and we just really appreciate your work.
Thank you.
I'd like to say the same thing, and as I've always said in my other life when I used to be an election worker, I'm glad to see that you're continuing to do a phenomenal job. From a personal perspective, it was a wonderful experience for me to participate as a citizen and recognize the process, what it takes to pull off something like this. So I thank you so very much for what you do.
It's a different viewpoint when you're sitting in the other chair. So.
Yes, oh, absolutely, absolutely. So again, thank you, and thank your workers, and I thank those volunteers, because I know it takes a lot to step up and do that as just a regular citizen to come into a situation like that. So thank you all.
Hancock, I echo the comments that are made relative to you and your staff and the election workers. Just had one question. I think most of us are all familiar with undervotes, but I noticed that we had some overvotes in 2 races. what is it, just so everybody will understand, what's an overvote?
An overvote our equipment for walk-in or in-person voting does not allow you to do an overvote. But in a mail-in process, when you do a mail-in ballot, you can do an overvote. An overvote is when you, choose too many candidates for one race. So say in president, they made a choice of 2 different, candidates instead of just the one.
Okay, but I noticed that didn't happen on any of the other races. Maybe it was just the number of
Right.
candidates that they had to choose from.
Probably.
So just let me clarify, you said that you lost the internet. I just wanna make sure that everybody understands, the only place the internet's used is in the e-poll books, which is when you check in, it goes to the state, and so that somebody can't come and vote there and then vote somewhere else, but none of the equipment, the election equipment is tied to the internet.
Correct. The election equipment is not, only the e-poll book. And that sends that information directly back to our office. And so then it's disseminated to the rest of the poll pads. So that way you can't come to my office and vote, and then you can't go somewhere else and vote. We have to have internet access at the limited ballot station, but that is only for the laptop that we use, to check voting, to check to see if those voters are registered in the state of Texas. So to do a limited ballot, you have to be registered in the state of Texas, so we have to be able to get on the state's database just to verify that those voters are there. Yes, and we, were able to, just use a MiFi and continue working.